Welcome to our special Chasing Silhouettes webinar, where we're going to be addressing the important topic of how to help someone you know, maybe a friend or perhaps a son or daughter, some other family member who's struggling with an eating disorder. I'll be serving as your host. My name is Jason Chatro, and today we'll be joined by Chasing Silhouettes author Emily Wierenga and two leading experts on the issue, Dr. Gregory Jantz and Constance Rhodes. Thanks all you guys for joining us today.
Yeah, I'm so excited about Emily's book, so happy to support it.
That's great. Well, just a little background. As far as our other two guests, Dr. Jantz is an internationally recognized best-selling author of 26 books and a mental health expert. He's the founder of the Center for Counseling and Health Resources, also known as A Place of Hope, a leading healthcare facility based in Seattle that helps people deal with a wide variety of issues from addictions to unhealthy body image to weight loss. And also joining us is Constance Rhodes, who lives near Nashville, Tennessee, and is the founder and CEO of Finding Balance, a Christian nonprofit dedicated to helping people eat well and live free. She's also the author of Life Inside the Thin Cage, a personal look into the hidden world of the chronic dieter, and Finding Balance with Food, a 12-week study for churches, colleges, and small groups. You can learn more about her work at findingbalance.com. So let's get started. First of all, with a very basic question. I think that we've all maybe had suspected somebody in our life that maybe had a problem or an eating disorder, and kind of how do we recognize that? What are some of the keys? If you guys want to start out by kind of answering this really basic question of how do we know if someone's struggling with an eating disorder?
For me, and I come at this as a lay expert, someone who's watched a mother who had an eating disorder for a number of years, and then I struggled with disordered eating for about a decade. And during many of those years, I didn't think it was a big enough problem to address. But as I came out of it, I began to recognize, and these are the things to look for, my extreme preoccupation with how much I weighed and what I ate. I would isolate away from friends because maybe I wouldn't go to social events if they had food that I was worried it would be, too fattening, and I would rather just skip the event than be tempted by the food. Or during some of those struggled years that I had, I would be binging, eating large amounts of food, and then feeling very ashamed the next day, hiding in my shame. My skin would break out when I was binging. So there's a variety of things that can be going on, and I think one of the things we'll get to in this conversation is the fact that you don't have to meet all the criteria for a clinical eating disorder to have issues that are worth looking into, whether it's for you or for your child.
And one of the things I wanted Constance to share, and Emily, because just that first-hand experience. So often, though, I'm noticing with families, we tend to either deny that this is a real problem, or beyond denial, we almost treat it as though, well, this is normal, this is just how so-and-so is. And so we begin to treat a dysfunction as though that it's normal, which almost means, well, it's okay. And so I'm stepping into the picture as a third-party observer, probably to bring another point of reality to the situation.
All right, Emily, for you, what are some of the signs that you see, personally, as you went through this, but also that you noticed in other people that you talked to?
Whenever I feel triggered, even today, one of the first things I want to do is withdraw from people and just kind of keep to myself. Something else is I do tend to stress trigger things, so maybe I'm having a bad afternoon. I just caught myself the other day. I went directly to brownies that I had in my fridge and ate them, and I felt better. Things like if you notice someone is feeling sad and then going to the fridge, or sad and going to the bathroom, or any kind of emotion and going to food, I would say that is definitely a sign, as well as the withdrawing. Those were my two big things.
Now, what if, Constance, you kind of touched on this a little bit in your first answer, but, what if you do have a daughter, son, friend, somebody who has issues that don't necessarily meet all the criteria for a clinically diagnosable eating disorder? Is this still a reason to be concerned?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, having lived it, and then like Dr. Jantz and Emily too, we know now we walk with people who are struggling with eating disorders and disordered eating, however you want to look at it. And ultimately what you begin to see is a quality of life issue. So lives that are very small. When you're in any kind of an addictive lifestyle, it's almost like your world gets smaller and smaller, and we're not engaging in relationship as much. Maybe feeling depressed. Depression and anxiety go hand in hand with disordered eating. not feeling fulfilled in life, maybe chasing life really hard, or on the other side of that, wanting to curl up in a ball and just kind of hide. These kinds of aspects become life controlling. They affect not only how we live, but how much we enjoy the life we're living, and how we engage in our relationships. When that happens, we become very lonely. And when that happens, we can engage in even more destructive behaviors, or the eating patterns can become much more destructive, as in Emily's case. I mean, she was flirting with death, and it started much simpler than that, but it just progressed that way as it wasn't addressed the way that it needed to be. So really noticing any kinds of these signs and symptoms and dealing with them as early as possible is great, because the sooner you can work with these issues, and I'm sure Dr. Jantz can talk more about this, the sooner you start the process of recovery, the less work you have to do, the less money it costs, the less damage that's done along the way.
I'd like to add, and thank you, Constance, because one of the things that we want to be sure that we're looking at is, I don't have to let this progress, and this disordered eating or this lifestyle or this dysfunction. I don't have to let it progress so that the self-defeating behaviors is really controlling my life and ultimately ruining my life, and at point endangering my life. And one of the reasons what I wanted to be here today is that Emily is a walking miracle story about how we can recover, and her story needs to be shared. And Emily, it's good for me to be able to be here today and just say your story is one that it needs to be shared.
So Emily, there's some other, other things for you too, as you're looking at this from, maybe not clinically, like the person, is there with everything that goes in with, you're checking into a clinic, but how concerned, do we need to be in some of these situations? How can you know if your son or daughter's eating issues are serious enough to warrant treatment? Now, at what point do you realize this is beyond what I can just do as a parent, encouraging them to make different decisions? Where is that line drawn for you guys? Maybe Dr. Jantz, if you want to start out with this one.
Absolutely. It's a very good question, Jason. Thank you for that question. There reaches a point where we find ourselves so frustrated. We're trying to help a person. We've maybe stepped over what I'll call codependent behavior, trying to rescue and save a person who we're concerned and we love greatly about. Anytime we begin to cross that line over to a line of codependency, we're in danger. I think the other thing is, I hear parents say, I wish we wouldn't have waited so long. And then they're coming from a place of regret. I regret we waited so long. I want to say, trust yourself. Know that this is maybe beyond you, and we've got to be big enough and at times just humbled enough to say, you know what, I need help and I need outside help. So my message is, don't wait so long. Don't be in a place of regret, of waiting so long. And sometimes, you know what, it takes some time to find the right help.
True. Can I jump in just for a second?
Sure.
Because one thing I'm reminded of is a lot of Christians in particular, and I know not everyone watching this is in a church, but a lot of times those who are in a church, or they ascribe to a certain faith, they feel very discouraged that their faith alone is not solving the problem, and they feel very embarrassed and ashamed of asking for help. And I think we're all here to say, hey, ask for help sooner than later. There's really no shame in admitting there's a struggle, and the sooner that we ask for help, the sooner it gets resolved and the less messy it gets. And really, we all are going to wrestle with life-controlling stuff in one way or another, and it doesn't make you any less spiritual or important or successful or any of these things that we think we've got to be. Let's just admit that we've got a struggle, we've got a problem, and let's, like Dr. Jantz said, seek out the right help for it, which does sometimes take a little time to feel your way through that.
And Emily, maybe you can speak a little bit to this. Why, when people are kind of struggling with, how do I handle this, or when do I start doing something beyond this? Why is it that, in your experience, that some of the people, parents that you've come across and talked to, are just kind of unwilling or are reticent to seek out help in a situation like this?
Well, I guess I should explain a little bit about my background. I did start to get sick when I was 9 years old, and I'm a pastor's daughter. So it was especially hard for my parents to seek help due to the just the force of the expectations on a pastor's family. It would be hard in any situation to ask for help because you're the, the leader of the people. And my dad does struggle a lot with, well, I think we all do, but just saving face. So it took a number of years before they were able to reach out. But in that time, there's just a lot of denial in my house. They tried to fix it by taking me to the doctor, by putting me in school because I was homeschooled. And yet not once did they come into my bedroom and just say, I'm so sorry for your pain, and I'm so sorry for what I did, whatever part I played in it, and please help me understand how I can help you. And I think a lot of what parents need to do is not go to the outside world anyway. Just go to the child, go to the loved one. If it's your spouse, go to your spouse and say, what is going on? I know it's not about food. The food is just an outlet. It's about what you're going through, and just show that you care. And hopefully it's not too late for them to be able to rationally tell you what is going on, or hopefully there's not so many walls between you by that point that they can still reach out and forgive you. I do believe there comes a point when your brain is so starved, or your body is so wrecked from whatever disorder that you do need outside help, obviously. But before all of that, just go directly to the person and just try and redeem that relationship.
Do you feel like that was had your parents kind of taken that tact with you, it would have reached you. It would have been a lot different situation.
For sure. I definitely believe that. By the age of 13, I was incredibly malnourished and starved. They were surprised I was still alive. At that point, I needed a divine intervention. I do credit it all to God, healing. And they still hadn't apologized or reached out to me. That took another 10 years. So when I relapsed as a married woman, they flew across the country, and we apologized to one another and forgave each other and prayed together, and that was very healing.
Wow, that's great. Well, yeah, I think this is an important thing, for people to understand, to know that as they're moving down this path. And Dr. Jantz, did you want to add something here?
Well, one of the things is, and Emily had a situation where really we could have gotten help and intervened sooner. And I love what she just shared about, I wish, my parents would have come and talked with me. And we really need to feel that love and acceptance versus the judgment in order for us to really share and begin the process of really identifying what is going on. Mm-hmm. And by the way, there's different things going on. Sometimes we know what's going on. Other times we don't even fully know what's going on.
Well, what's let's say somebody goes into treatment or is kind of working through these different issues. How long should we expect for somebody to be in recovery of something like this?
I would say that you want to think about the fact that it's taken a long time to develop the struggle, and so the idea of a super quick fix is just not realistic. And there are different components to the recovery process. So some folks, depending on the level of severity of their struggle or the way that it's interrupting their life, need to go to a place like a place of hope where Dr. Jantz is, or other treatment places. And other folks may not need quite that level of care. And then you can't stay in that level of care forever, so there's care on the other end of that. But it's a different story for every person. I think one of the challenges that we face in that industry right now is just how little insurance wants to pay. And so some of these stays that really should be maybe 60 or even 90 days or even longer would be awesome. Sometimes get cut down to just a couple of weeks, and now you've stabilized your weight, so we're going to kick you out of our program, kind of a thing. So there's a lot of challenges, and it's a really complicated, not easy to answer question when you get to how long it should be. But I think at the minimum, and you can see what you say about this, Dr. Jantz, I think at least a 6 to 8 week break out of life where you can just kind of walk away from all the stress of life and really focus on your care. I think that's a great place to begin for a lot of folks.
That's good.
Absolutely. And recovery happens on different levels. There's the physical level of recovery, our body physically, the process there. There's the relational recovery, There's a level of sometimes forgiveness. There's so many different levels of recovery. Uh, and I would add there's relational recovery, there's spiritual recovery. And so when we look at the whole person, this is something that's going to take some time. And Constance said it so well, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. That's just phase one of the process. I want to build, I think for some folks, it's a year longer just physically for their bodies to begin to really restore and to be renourished. So it depends on the person, but I like to say, you know what? Let's cross that 3 month mark, the 6 month mark, and then let's cross the 1 year mark and keep going.
Well, now, let's say somebody has, just left treatment, and you kind of want to help them stay on track. What are some real practical things that you can do? I know Dr. Jantz, you touched on, really letting people know that they're loved and not judged. But what are some things like that the real simple things that people can do to help? Maybe Dr. Jantz, you can start, and then Emily and Constance, you can add some things in too.
Sure. One of the things that we do in what we call our aftercare planning, which is really more like phase two, is I want to make sure that I can identify 3 to 5 resources at home and environment, or resources I'm going to find and create that are resources that believe in me. It could be a therapist, it could be a pastor person, somebody in ministry, but I want to have some key relationships that are going to be in my life that represent accountability, love and acceptance, and truth-telling. Because I've got to surround myself, because I'm going to go back to an old environment that may not be that healthy. So I've got to build my health team, so to speak, which may include a physician or hopefully somebody that understands the nature of the eating disorder. But I've got to have that care group, that team surround me that I really trust, and I will really be honest with them and say how I am. We hear the idea of the AA sponsor. This is like an AA sponsor group plus more.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And, if you'll catch what Dr. Jantz is saying, he's basically saying relationship is what's going to carry you on a healthy path in life, period. Because we all get sick when we're isolated by ourselves. And so practically speaking, one of the things that we do at Finding Balance is we've created small group tools, because we know that healing happens in the context of that community. And I love what you said, Dr. Jantz, about truth telling, because we've got to hear that truth every single week, in some cases every single day, from one person or another. And so I think you've got to build this unit, these different combined pieces that make up this unit. And you've got your doctor on it as you need a physician, a nutritionist if you need a nutritionist, a counselor. I think we all need counselors always if we can do it. And then a group, a peer group. And that's one of the things that we build at Finding Balance. Is we have something called the Finding Balance Gathering that people can watch even online by themselves. In fact, Emily, we have a couple of her sessions from one of our conferences on there as a lesson. You can be watching these lessons, learning from these lessons, and hopefully engaging with others as you do that, because that truth has to be said in a safe environment that keeps you real. Otherwise, you're going to go back in here where there's a lot of unreal stuff happening all the time.
All right, Emily, what are some other things that you've seen that practically that parents or friends and family can do for somebody who's kind of coming out of that place?
I was put in the general hospital and just told to eat. And thankfully, because of divine revelation I had on the way to the hospital and the fact that the nurses called me a miracle, I had the personal motivation to get better at that point in my life. I never revisited, though, the issues that had caused the anorexia in the first place. I kind of just wanted to start over. So what helped me at that point in my life was having a caring nucleus of friends and also a new school environment, because I entered high school right after I got out of general hospital. And so just to have a chance to start over in my life, having boys to focus on and close girlfriends, all of that helped because I had new motivation, as well as the fact that I knew I was a miracle. My faith in God was completely restored. So that carried me through for the next 10 years. But then when I got married at 23, all of the issues that had with my father and my mother, that like just authority figures in general resurfaced because my husband was now a new authority figure in my life. And again, I clung to food or the lack thereof to just be able to hold on to some kind of control. I never really properly addressed any of these issues. And so, again, I spiraled downward for another 3 years, and it wasn't until my husband gave me an ultimatum to choose him or food at one point that I decided, again, I was motivated. I believe that was a divine intervention to get better for him. Sometimes we need to, just have someone care enough, and he cared enough to be willing to let me go because he knew that I needed that challenge. I don't think I would have gotten out of it without him being stern like that. But we have to know the timing. He was very patient for 3 years, but he knew I was in a dangerous place and that I needed an extreme ultimatum. So I don't know that there's anything that you can, I don't want to say or put the pressure on people that there's something specific you can say or do or not do, because that's, again, like us, right? We need to look to God for the wisdom in every single circumstance. Every person is different, so we really need to seek the Lord when we're walking with someone in our healing. What is their love language? How can I best help them in this situation? Maybe a new start is best. Maybe it's not good for them to come home directly out of treatment, but to, go to a new environment with a loved one. Make sure there is that accountability. Of course, they need that, but it does often help to have a new start, new motivation.
What kind of support can a parent look for? I mean, where can they find the resources and the community and the things that can help them, stay focused and really be as good of a help and a support to their children, as they possibly can, and as they're helping them walk through this and find a place of healing? What are some of the places you guys recommend or places you go online?
I recommend Finding Balance, which is my website, because that's one of the reasons that we created it, was to give you an instant, private, in your living room or in your office kind of portal to a lot of resources. It certainly doesn't end there. But if you go to Finding Balance, just to our homepage, you'll see that you can click if you're a parent or a friend. And if you click that, it's going to bring you to a page that specifically tells you where to find the stuff that's going to be helpful to you, whether it's videos that we've done with lots and lots of people, articles that you can read, books that you will find helpful to read, which my favorite one right now is this one right here, if you can see that. I do think that this is one of the best books available for a parent or loved one going through this issue, which is why I'm a huge champion of it. But you can start with a place like ours, and then I'll hand it over to Dr. Jantz. I think there's work to be done to create more support for parents, but what do you see out where you are, Dr. J?
Well, one of the things I was going to, there's nobody doing what Constance is doing, so that's the first stop. And I was going to say you've got to read Emily's book, and that's the reason why we're here today, because we believe in what Emily has done, and she's a walking witness of the power of recovery. It's so important for parents not to do this in isolation. When you're struggling with eating disorder, that's the tendency we've talked about already, is the isolation issues. And we don't recover in isolation, and parents and families don't recover in isolation. So we've got to be willing as a parent to reach out and go, you know what? I need support. There's some things about me that needs to change, and I've got to be willing to look at that. Because sometimes when I think I'm being supportive, I may not be. I may be saying and doing some things that really aren't helpful. So I've got to look at myself. So the Finding Balance and all the resources there gets me plugged in. And then I've got to read some things. And so get a copy of Emily's book.
And Dr. Jantz, you have quite a few books as well that kind of address this subject.
He only has a couple books, just 2 or 3.
Yeah, 20 plus. No, the great resources, which Constance, we can find your stuff, findingbalance.com. Great resource. I've been there and looked around on it. I think you guys have done an incredible job of making it easy for people to find what they're looking for. And Dr. Jantz, we can go to aplaceofhope.com, and also at Emily's got some really great insightful stuff at her website, chasingsilhouettes.com, as she's kind of sharing, some personal insights and stories as well as she's going through, that people can get firsthand there. So lots of good resources around for everybody. Well, thank you all so much for joining us and taking time out of your schedules to chat. And hopefully everybody that's been listening or watching, that you will have an opportunity to check some of these resources out and get help. I mean, don't let this fester. I think one of the things that we kind of covered was don't let it go on, and don't unchecked or ignore it or pretend like it's going to go away. Lay down your pride, and let's don't let something that could be nipped in the bud turn into something that'd be a lot more difficult to handle and later on in life.